He was no longer just absorbing. He began suggesting modifications to my approaches. Sometimes his ideas were brilliant, other times they seemed naive. It was during a sales conference in Chicago that I first noticed a change in how he carried himself around me. After a successful day where I had delivered the keynote and he had led a breakout session, we were at the hotel bar. "Your session went well," I said. "Thanks," he replied with a small smile. "I used some of your techniques but updated them a bit." The audience seemed to respond to the modern approach. There was something in his tone, a slight emphasis on modern, that made me pause. "To innovation, then," I said, raising my glass. He clinked his glass against mine. "And to those wise enough to recognize it." The first real warning sign came about 6 months later. We were finalizing a massive deal with Global Corp, a client I'd been cultivating for over 2 years. The day before our final presentation, Alex came to my office with a completely restructured proposal. "This is a significant departure from what we discussed," I said carefully. "It's a risk," he acknowledged, "but a calculated one. Their CFO comes from a tech background. He'll respond better to innovation metrics than cost savings projections." "Alex, I've been working with Global Corp since before their CFO was hired. I know their priorities. Those priorities are shifting. I had coffee with their director of operations yesterday. Off the record, he said the CFO is pushing for transformation." I was taken aback. "You met with them without telling me?" "It was just coffee. Sarah and I went to the same business school." I felt a flicker of unease. Not only had he gone behind my back, but he also had information I didn't. "We're sticking with the original strategy," I said firmly. Alex nodded. "Of course. You're the boss." Those 4 words. They should have comforted me, confirmed the hierarchy. Instead, they felt like the first crack in the foundation. The Global Corp presentation went well enough. We won the contract, though at a smaller initial commitment than I had hoped. During the celebration, I overheard Alex talking to our chief marketing officer. "Could have been a bigger deal if we'd emphasized the innovation aspects more," he was saying. "You think so?" the CMO asked. "I know so, but sometimes experience makes you cautious. Institutional knowledge is valuable, but it can also blind you to shifting winds." Was that how he saw me now? Cautious? Blind to change? Caution wasn't blindness. It was wisdom born from watching companies chase shiny, new approaches right into bankruptcy. Over the next few months, I noticed Alex spending more time with other executives. Once, I saw him giving a presentation to our CEO and several board members. When I asked him about it, he was vague. "Just some ideas about restructuring the sales territories," he said casually. Restructuring the territories? That was my domain. Why wasn't I in that meeting? I began watching more carefully and noticed how Alex had cultivated relationships throughout the company. He played basketball with the CTO, had lunch with the CEO's executive assistant, and volunteered for the cross-departmental initiatives. It was textbook relationship building, exactly what I had taught him. But now it felt like he was creating his own network, independent of me. During our one-on-ones, I continued sharing insights, but he was less receptive, more likely to counter with his own perspective. "The market is changing," became his favorite phrase. "We need to adapt more quickly." The implication, of course, was that I wasn't adapting quickly enough. Then came the Westfield incident. Westfield Technologies was our oldest client, one I had personally brought in a decade ago. Their CEO, Harold, valued relationships and FaceTime over slick presentations. We had dinner whenever I was in Detroit. When they were preparing for a major system upgrade, I planned to handle the negotiations myself. But the CEO called me into his office. "I'm sending Alex to the Westfield meeting," he said without preamble. I was stunned. Westfield is my account. Harold is expecting me. Harold's son has been taking on more responsibility there. Jason and Alex apparently know each other from some tech conference. They speak the same language. So I'm being sidelined because I'm from the same generation as Harold. We're deploying our resources strategically. Alex has been sharing some interesting perspectives on legacy clients. I want to see his theories in action. When I confronted Alex, he seemed apologetic. I didn't ask for this assignment. The CEO approached me after I presented my market segmentation analysis. What market segmentation analysis? Something I've been working on in my own time. It included thoughts on how we might better serve clients at different stages of technological maturity. And you didn't think to discuss this with me first? Honestly? I wasn't sure you'd be receptive. You have a certain way of doing things. I felt myself at a crossroads. I chose to swallow my pride. Show me this analysis, I said. For the next 2 hours, he walked me through his thinking. It was thorough and insightful. He had identified patterns I hadn't seen, not because I wasn't capable, but because I was so immersed in our traditional approach. This is good work, I acknowledged. Next time, bring me into the loop before it reaches the CEO. He nodded. Of course. But the damage was done. Something fundamental had shifted in our dynamic and in my standing within the company. The Westfield deal was a tremendous success. Alex not only secured the contract, but also expanded it to include their international offices, something Harold had always resisted. The deal value tripled from our initial projections. During the celebration, I tried to be gracious, but it was difficult. This had been my account. These were people I'd built relationships with over many years. Yet, in one meeting, Alex had achieved what I couldn't in a decade. The CEO pulled me aside. "This is why we need both of you," he said. "You built the foundation. Alex is building on your legacy." My legacy? The word felt premature, as though my time was already being spoken of in the past tense. Over the next months, a pattern emerged. Alex was increasingly given high-profile assignments that would normally have been mine. In meetings, the CEO began looking to him first for input. My opinions were still respected, but they no longer carried the weight of assumed authority. I began hearing rumors. Alex had been seen having dinner with our CEO and board members. He had been asked to present at the annual shareholder meeting, a role typically reserved for C-suite executives. Once, I overheard junior sales reps talking. "Just a matter of time before he moves up," one was saying. I felt like I was watching my own slow-motion replacement. The worst part was that I couldn't even vilify Alex. He was good at his job. He was bringing in results. He was exactly what I had shaped him to be, with a fresh perspective that was valuable to the company. But there was a calculated nature to his ascent that I couldn't ignore. Then came the company retreat in Aspen. I had always been part of the inner circle at these events, invited to the late-night sessions where real decisions were made. This time, I found myself subtly excluded. Meanwhile, Alex was everywhere, skiing with the chairman, presenting analyses, joining exclusive dinners. On the third night, unable to sleep, I went to the hotel bar. Melissa from HR was there. "They're creating a new position," she told me after some small talk. "Chief Revenue Officer, above VP of Sales." I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. And let me guess who the leading candidate is. The board votes next month. Thanks for telling me. You deserve to know. I think it's wrong how this is being handled. You built that department. I decided to neither fight nor flee. I would continue doing my job excellently and let the chips fall where they may. A month later, the CEO called me into his office. The CFO and Melissa from HR were there. "We're restructuring the sales organization," the CEO began. A new Chief Revenue Officer position was being created. Alex would fill that role. My position would report to the CRO. "We value your experience," the CEO said, not meeting my eyes. This isn't a demotion so much as a specialization of roles. It was a demotion wrapped in corporate euphemism. "I see," I said. "And if this arrangement doesn't work for me? We've prepared a separation package that I think you'll find fair." They had come prepared for my resignation. Perhaps they were even hoping for it. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. By evening, most of the office had cleared out. I was still at my desk when Alex knocked at my door. "Do you have a moment?" he asked, his expression somewhere between confidence and caution. "Congratulations on your promotion," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "You've achieved a lot in a short time." "I couldn't have done it without your mentorship," he replied. "That's why I'm here. I'm hoping you'll stay on. The team respects you. This restructuring could be good for both of us." "Tell me something, Alex. Was this your goal from the beginning? To take my job?" He didn't answer immediately. "I came to TriTech to learn and advance my career. The specifics weren't predetermined. But you positioned yourself as the innovation-minded alternative to my supposedly outdated approach. Business evolves. Companies need different leadership at different stages. Alex, 3 years ago you walked in as a newly minted MBA with no real-world experience. Everything you know about this industry, this company, these clients, you learned from me. And now you're offering me a consolation prize. The business environment has changed," he said, an edge entering his voice. "TriTech needs to adapt. My strategies have consistently outperformed traditional approaches. It's not personal, it's business. It's always personal. Business is relationships, and relationships are personal. That's something you still haven't fully grasped." "So what will you do?" he finally asked. I looked at the separation agreement. "I'll let you know tomorrow." I took the package. The next morning, I arrived early, packed my personal items, left my resignation letter, and walked out without saying goodbye. The weeks that followed were difficult. I cycled through anger, betrayal, self-doubt, and grief. I questioned every decision, wondering where I had gone wrong. But gradually, something unexpected happened. As word of my departure spread, I began receiving calls. Former clients, competitors, venture capitalists, all wanting to meet. 3 months later, I accepted a position as Chief Operating Officer at EmergeSoft, a smaller but rapidly growing competitor. The role was broader, with more strategic input and a path to CEO when the founder retired in 2 years. From my new position, I watched TriTech with interest. Alex implemented his innovative strategies. Some succeeded brilliantly. Others failed spectacularly, costing the company millions. Without my tempering influence, his boldness sometimes veered into recklessness. A year later, I heard he was struggling. The board was growing impatient with the volatility of results. The sales team was resistant to his leadership style. 18 months after my departure, I received a call from TriTech's CEO. "We made a mistake," he said bluntly. "The reorganization hasn't worked out. We'd like to discuss your return in a senior leadership role." I declined. My career at EmergeSoft was flourishing. We had just surpassed TriTech in market share in 2 key segments. As for Alex, he lasted another 6 months before being asked to resign. The last I heard, he was working at a startup, no longer in a leadership position. Would I have handled things differently, knowing what I know now? Perhaps. I might have been more strategic about protecting my position, but I don't regret mentoring Alex, sharing my knowledge, helping him grow. That's who I am, a builder of people and organizations. The betrayal taught me valuable lessons about corporate politics, about the double-edged sword of mentorship, about adapting to change while staying true to core principles. Most importantly, it taught me that sometimes what feels like the end is actually the beginning of something better. Today, I'm more fulfilled professionally than I ever was at TriTech. I continue to mentor promising talent, though perhaps with a bit more wisdom about the complexities of human ambition. And occasionally, I think about Alex and hope he learned something valuable from our story too. That success built on undermining others is rarely sustainable, and that true leadership requires not just innovation, but integrity. So that's my story. A painful lesson in workplace politics, betrayal, and ultimately, resilience. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you mentored or trusted in your professional life? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to Dismissal Diaries for more real-life workplace dramas and the valuable lessons they teach us. We bring you new stories every week that will help you navigate your own career challenges with wisdom and foresight. Until next time, remember, sometimes getting fired isn't the end. It's the beginning of something even better.